Hello everyone, I'm John and we are reading Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. Jumping right back in. The 3 basic portrait poses. In portrait drawing, artists have traditionally posed their models or themselves in self-portraits in one of 3 traditional views. Full face or frontal view, the artist faces the model directly, or for a self-portrait, faces a mirror with both sides of the face fully visible to the artist. See the Sargent portrait of Olimpio Fusco and the Morisot self-portrait. Profile or side view. This is the view you drew in the last chapter. The model faces forward, the artist left or right, and only one side or one half of the model's face is visible to the artist. Profile self-portraits are relatively rare, perhaps due to the complication of setting up multiple mirrors. 3/4 view. The model makes a half turn towards left or right, making visible 3/4 of the model's face. The profile, 1/2, plus the quarter face visible on the turn side. Thus the 3/4 designation. See Hopper self-portrait, figure 10-7. Note that the full face and profile views are relatively invariant, while the 3/4 view can vary from an almost profile to an almost full face pose and still be called a 3/4 view. See the Rossetti portrait of Jane Burden, figure 10-8. Taking the next step. We are relying on the skills you've developed with the first 3 components to learn the 4th. Lights and shadows. For this process to work, you will call on your skills of seeing edges, where lights change into shadows, seeing shapes of lights and shadows as positive and negative shapes, and seeing the angles and proportions of lights and shadows. In this lesson, all the basic skills work together as a whole, or global skill. More than the other components, this 4th skill apparently strongly triggers the brain's ability to envision a complete form from incomplete information. As you saw in the black and white patterns in figures 10-4, by suggesting a form with light and shadow shapes, you can cause a viewer to see something that is not actually there. And the viewer's brain apparently always gets it right. If you provide the right clues, your viewers will see marvelous things that you don't even have to draw. For a wonderful example of this phenomenon, look again at the self-portrait by Edward Hopper, figure 10-7. In this 3/4 pose, the artist strongly lighted one side of his face and left the other side in deep shadow. If you turn the image upside down, you will see that there is almost no change in the even tone of the shadowed side. Yet, right side up, the eye and shadow seems to be there, and even when we see the expression in that eye, that isn't there. An even more striking example of this light-shadow magic is Edward Steinchen's 1901 photographic self-portrait with brush and palette, figure 10-9. The logic of light tells us that Steichen arranged a focused light above and to his left, leaving the right side of his face and his left eye shadowed by his brow ridge in deep shadow. The shapes of these shadows carve the features in 3 dimensions. Even though we see no details, we are able to envision the features and the expressions on the face. They seem more real than real because the interpretation is triggered in the brain. The truth is, by giving only the slightest clues in a light shadow drawing, you can cause your viewer to complete the image, and your viewer's right hemisphere will be delighted to enter this collaboration. Learning this trick of the artist involves imaging. As you're drawing, you will occasionally squint your eyes to see if you can yet see the form you intend. And when you see it, that is, when the clues are sufficient to trigger the envisioned image, stop. So many times in workshops watching a student draw lights and shadows, I find myself urgently saying, stop, it's there, you've got it. To practice this game of lights and shadows, I suggest that you make a copy of a detail of the Steichen 3/4 self-portrait, just the head, as shown in figure 1010. But first, I need to provide you with some brief instruction on the proportions of the head in full frontal view and in 3/4 view. All the proportions laid out below can be simply cited, of course, but our students have found it helpful to have some guidance. It is important to remember that size, consistency, and shape consistency are in play here, and some of these proportions are difficult to see correctly. The frontal view. Keeping this book open to the diagram, figure 10-12, sit in front of a mirror with the book, a piece of paper, and a pencil. You are going to observe and diagram the relationships of various parts of your own head. Note that the mirror becomes your picture plane. Stop a moment to think that through. I'm sure you will see the logic of it. Your image is flattened on the surface of the mirror, and if you are sitting close enough, you can take sights of angles and proportions directly on the mirror. 1. Looking at your own face in the mirror, visualize a central axis that divides your face and observes that your eye level line is at right angles to the central axis. Tip your head to one side, as in figure 1013. Notice that the central axis and the eye level line remain at right angles no matter what direction you tip your head. This is only logical, I know, but many people ignore this fact and skew the features, as in the Van Gogh etching, figures 1012 and 1014. 2. First, draw a blank, an oval shape, on your paper and draw the central axis dividing the diagram. Then observe and use your pencil to measure on your own head the eye level line. The measurement will be halfway. On the blank, draw an eye level line. Be sure to measure to ensure that you have made this placement accurately in your drawing. 3. Observe in the mirror. What is the width of the space between your eyes compared to the width of one eye? Yes, it's the width of one eye. Divide the eye level approximately into fifths, as shown in figure 1011. Mark the inside and outside corners of each eye. The space between the eyes varies slightly from face to face, but only slightly. A discrepancy of only 1/4 inch can be judged as very close set or very wide set eyes. 4. Observe your face in the mirror between the eye level and chin. Where is the end of the nose? This is the most variable of all the features of the human head. You can visualize an inverted triangle on your own face, with the wide points at the outside corners of your eyes and the center point at the bottom edge of your nose. This method is quite reliable. The inverted triangle of your nose length may be different, shorter or longer, from the generic one shown in figure 1011. Draw the triangle. 5. Where is the level of the center line of the mouth? About 1/3 of the way between the nose and chin. Make a mark on the blank. Again, this proportion will vary from face to face. 6. Observe your face in the mirror. If you drop a line straight down from the inside corners of your eyes, what do you come to? The outside edges of your nostrils. Noses are wider than you expect. Mark the blank. 7. If you drop a line straight down from the center of the pupils of your eyes, what do you come to? The outside corners of your mouth. This proportion also varies, but in general, mouths are wider than you expect. Mark the blank. 8. If you move your pencil along the horizontal line on the level of your eyes, what do you come to? The tops of your ears. Mark the blank. 9. Coming back from the bottoms of your ears in a horizontal line, what do you come to? In most faces, the space between your nose and mouth. Ears are bigger than you expect. Mark the blank. 10. Feel on your own face and neck. How wide is your neck compared to the width of your jaw, just in front of your ears? You'll see that your neck is almost as wide. In some men, it's as wide or wider. Mark the blank. Note that necks are also wider than you expect. 11. Now test each of your perceptions on people. Photographs of people and images of people on the television screen. Practice observing often, first without measuring and then, if necessary, corroborating by measuring. Practice perceiving relationships between this feature and that, perceiving the unique, minute differences between faces. Seeing. Eventually, you will have memorized the general measurements given above, and you won't have to analyze in the left hemisphere mode as we have been doing. But for now, it's best to practice observing specific individual faces while keeping in mind the general guide to proportions. Now we'll turn to the three-quarter view. Artists of the Renaissance loved the three-quarter view. Once they had finally worked through the problems of the proportions, I hope you will choose this view for your self-portrait. It's somewhat complicated, but fascinating to draw. Young children rarely draw people with heads turned to three-quarter view. Nearly always, they draw either profiles or the full frontal view. Around the age of 10 or so, children begin to attempt three-quarter view drawings, perhaps because this view can be particularly expressive of the personality of the model. The problems young artists encounter with this view are the same old problems. The three-quarter view brings visual perceptions into conflict with the symbolic forms for profile and full-face views developed throughout early childhood. Views which by age 10 are embedded in memory. What are those conflicts? First, as you see in figure 1015, the nose is not the same as the nose seen in frontal view. In three-quarter view, you see the top and the side of the nose, making it seem very wide at the bottom. Second, the two sides of the face are different widths, one side narrow, one side wide. Third, the eye on the turned side is narrower and shaped differently from the other eye. Fourth, the mouth from its center to the corner is shorter on the turned side and shaped differently from the mouth on the near side of the central axis. These perceptions of non-matching features conflict with memorized symbols for features which are nearly always symmetrical. The solution to the conflict is, of course, to draw just what you see in the mirror picture plane, without questioning why it is thus or so, and without changing the perceived forms to fit with a memorized and stored set of symmetrical symbols for features. The key is always to see the thing as it is in all its unique and marvelous complexity. But my students have found it helpful if I point out some specific aids to seeing the three-quarter proportions. Let me again take you through the process step by step, giving you some methods for keeping your perceptions clearly in mind. Again, note that if I were demonstrating the three-quarter view drawing, I would not be naming any of the parts, only pointing to each area. When you are drawing, do not name the parts to yourself. In fact, try not to talk to yourself at all while drawing. Using the mirror as the picture plane. 1. Again, sit in front of the mirror with paper and pencil. Sit close enough that you can cite measurements right on the mirror surface. Pose your head by starting with a full frontal view and then turning, either left or right, until the tip of your nose nearly coincides with the outer contour of the turned cheek, as in figure 1018. You can see that this forms an enclosed shape. You are now seeing one full half plus 1/4 of your face. In other words, a classic 3/4 view seen flattened on the mirror/picture plane. 2. Observe your head. Perceive the central axis. That is, an imaginary line that passes through the very center of the face, in 3/4 view and also in frontal view. The central axis passes through 2 points, a point in the center of the bridge of the nose and a point at the middle of the upper lip. Imagine this as a thin wire that passes right through the form of the nose. By holding your pencil vertically at arm's length towards your reflection in the mirror, check the angle or tilt of the central axis of your head. You may have a characteristic tilt to your head, or the axis may be perfectly vertical. 3. Next, observe that your eye level line is at right angles to the central axis. This observation will help you avoid skewing the features. Measure the position of the eye level on your head and observe again that your eye level line is at the halfway point of your whole head. Remember, your reflected image is flattened on the mirror/picture plane, so you needn't close one eye. 4. Now practice making a line drawing of a 3/4 view on your scratch paper. You will be using the method of modified contour drawing slowly, directing your gaze at edges, and perceiving relational sizes, angles, etc. Again, you can start anywhere you wish. I tend to start with the shape between the nose and the contour of the turned side of the cheek because that shape is easy to see. Note that this shape can be thought of as an interior negative shape, a shape you have no name for. 5. Direct your eyes to the shape and wait until you can see it clearly. Draw the edges of the shape. Because the edges are shared, you will have also drawn the edge of the nose. Inside the shape you have drawn is the eye with the odd configuration of the 3/4 eye. Remember to draw the eye. Don't draw the eye. Draw the shape around the eye. Remember to draw the eye. Don't draw the eye. Okay. I want to use the order 1, 2, 3, 4 as shown in figure 1018, but any order will work as well. First the shape over the eye, then the shape next to it, then the shape of the white part of the eye, then the shape under the eye. Try not to think about what you are drawing, just see and draw each shape. 6. Next, locate the correct placement of the eye on the side of the head closest to you in the mirror. Observe your head that the inside corner lies on the eye level line. Note especially how far away this eye is from the edge of the nose. This distance is nearly always equal to the full width of the eye on the near side of your head. Be sure to look at figure 1019 for this proportion. The most common error students make in the 3/4 view is to place the eye too close to the nose. This error throws off all the remaining proportions and can spoil the drawing. Make sure that you see by sighting the width of the space and draw it as you see it. Incidentally, it took the early Renaissance artists half a century to work out this particular proportion. We benefit, of course, from their hard-won insights. They would have killed for tappa, tappa, tappa. Number 7. Next, the nose. Check on your image in the mirror where the edge of the nostril is in relation to the inside corner of the eye. Drop a line straight down. This is called a sight line, parallel to the central axis. Remember that noses are bigger than you think. Just draw the bottom of the nose and the nostril as you see it. 8. Observe where the corners of your mouth lie in relation to the eye. Then observe the center line of the mouth and the exact curve. This curve is important in catching your expression. Don't talk to yourself about this. The visual perceptions are there to be seen. Try to draw precisely what you see. Exact edges, spaces, angles, proportions, lights, and shadows. Accept your perceptions without second guessing them. Observe the upper and lower edges of your lips. Remembering that the slight color change defining the upper and lower lips is usually depicted with a light line because these are not true edges or strong contours. 10. On the turned side of your head, observe the shape of the spaces around the mouth. Again, note the exact curve of the center line where the lips part. This contour will be different on each side of the central axis. 11. Placing the ear. The mnemonic for placing the back edge of the ear in profile view must be slightly changed to account for the turn of the head in 3/4 view. The mnemonic for the profile view, eye level to chin, equals back of eye to back of ear, becomes the mnemonic for the 3/4 view, eye level to chin equals front of eye to back of ear. You can perceive this relationship by measuring it on your reflection in the mirror. Next, note the location of the top of the ear and then the bottom. And take a little bit of a break, get some water. A warm-up exercise. A copy of a detail of the Stettin self-portrait. Imagine that you are honored by a visit from the famous photographer Edward Stettin, and that he has agreed to sit for a portrait drawing. The artist is in a rather serious mood, quiet and thoughtful. Imagine further that in a darkened room you have arranged a spotlight so that it shines from above and slightly to the left of Stettin, illuminating the top of his forehead but leaving the eyes and more than half of the face in deep shadow. Take a moment to consciously see the lights and shadows logically fall relative to the source of light. Then turn the book upside down to see the shadows as a pattern of shapes. The wall behind is slightly lighted, silhouetting the dark head and shoulders of your model. This is right. What you'll need: your 4B drawing pencil, your erasers, your clear plastic picture plane, a stack of 3 or 4 sheets of drawing paper taped to your drawing board, your graphite stick, and some paper napkins. What you'll do: please read through all the instructions before starting. 1. As always, draw a format edge on your drawing paper using the outside edge of one of your viewfinders. This format is the same proportion, width to height, as the detail reproduction. 2. Tone your paper with a rubbed graphite ground to the darkest dark you can achieve. 3. Set your picture plane on top of the detail reproduction. The crosshairs will instantly show you where to locate the essential points of the drawing. If you wish, you could work upside down for at least the first blocking in of the lights and shadows. 4. Add crosshairs to your toned format, but this time use a straight edge and a trimmed eraser, see figure 10-22, to add thin erased lines rather than trying to draw crosshairs on the dark tone. Just run the trimmed eraser along the straight edge of your picture plane. The erased crosshairs are easy to remove later by rubbing them into the base tone. 5. Decide on a basic unit, perhaps the length of the nose, or the length of the light shape from the top of the nose to the bottom of the chin, or perhaps from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. Remember that everything in the Stitchen image is locked into a relationship for this reason. You can start with any basic unit and end up with the correct relationships. Transfer your basic unit to the drawing paper following the instructions on page 158 and in figures 8, 15, 16, and 17. The step-by-step procedure I offer below is only a suggestion about how to proceed. You may wish to use an entirely different sequence. Also note that I am naming parts of the drawing only for instructional purposes. As you draw, try your best to see the shapes of light and darks wordlessly. I realize that this is like trying not to think of the word elephant, but as you continue to draw, thinking wordlessly becomes second nature. 7. You will be drawing with your trimmed eraser. Begin by lightly erasing the major shapes of light on the face. The white neck scarf and the soft shapes behind the collar and shoulders will always checking the size, angles, and position of those shapes against your basic unit. You might think of these light shapes as negative shapes, but shared edges with the dark forms. By correctly seeing and erasing the light shapes, you'll have the dark shapes for free. 8. Squint your eyes to see where the lightest lights are. The top of the forehead, the white scarf, and the highlight on the nose. Erase these areas to the lightest light you can achieve. 9. Using your 4B pencil, darken the area around the top of the head. Observe the shapes of the shadows under the brow, the shadowed side of the face, under the nose, under the lower lip, and the shadow that shapes the chin. 10. Keep your tones quite smooth. Notice that there is almost no information in the shadowed areas. They are nearly uniform tones, yet the face and features emerge out of the shadows. These perceptions are occurring in your own brain. Imaging and extrapolating from incomplete information. The hardest part of this drawing will be resisting the temptation to give too much information. Let the shadows stay shadowy and have faith that your viewer will extrapolate the features, the expressions, the eyes, everything. 11. At this point, you have the drawing blocked in. The rest is all refinement, called working up the drawing to a finish. Note that because the original is a photograph and you are working in pencil, the exact textures and tones are difficult to reproduce in pencil. But even though you are copying Stitchen's self-portrait, your drawing is your drawing. Your unique style of drawing and choice of emphasis will show through. 12. At each step, pull back a little from the drawing, squint your eyes a bit, and slightly move your head from side to side to see if the image is beginning to emerge. Try to see, that is, to image. What you have not yet drawn. Let's try it. Try to see, that is, to image, what you have not yet drawn. Use this imagined image to add to, change, and reinforce what is there in the drawing. You will find yourself shifting back and forth, drawing, imaging, drawing again. Be sparing. Provide only enough information to the viewer to allow the correct image to occur in the viewer's imagined perception. Do not overdraw. 13. As you are working up the drawing, try to focus your attention on the original. For any problem that you encounter, the answer is in the original. For example, you will want to achieve the same facial expression. The way to accomplish that is to pay careful attention to the exact shapes, for example, of the shadow under the cheekbone and the lighter shape around the upper lip. Notice that small shadow at the corner of the mouth. Try not to talk to yourself about the facial expression. It will emerge from the shapes of the lights and shadows. 14. Draw just what you see, no more, no less. You may be tempted to draw the eyes. Don't do it. Allow the viewer of your drawing to play the game of seeing what is not there. Your job is to barely suggest, just as the artist and photographer did. After you have finished, in copying the sketch and self-portrait, you are bound to be impressed by this work. Its subtlety and strength, and how the personality and character of the photographer model emerge from the shadows. I hope that this exercise has provided you with a taste for the power of light and shadow in drawing. An even greater satisfaction, of course, will come from doing your own self-portrait. Cross-hatching a lighter shadow. Before we advance to the next drawing, your self-portrait, I want to show you how to cross-hatch. This is a technical term. And I think we're at about 30 minutes, and my voice is hoarse, and I think we will jump into cross-hatching in the next video. Thanks for staying with me. This is the third video tonight, so yeah. Ooh, I am exhausted, so thanks for hanging in there with me. My voice is not doing great, but that's part of it. All right, thanks. See you next time.